short-term challenges that the important company that any one of you represent is facing, both for the domestic market and for the export manufacturing?
I believe that the major challenge that we are going to face, in short, is how we are going to be back to work with the new protocols of sanity. How we are going to assure that all the productivity, all the quality, and everything else that has distinguished the Mexican manufacturing, particularly in automotive industry.
The communication with them, with the supply chain, with the logistic chain, with the customers, to know in firsthand what are the potential risks, are very important in order to prepare backup plans that are changing almost every day. We are identifying and changing in order to adapt to the new needs of the customers in Mexico. No, the online sales are getting a lot of relevance at this moment. So because of the normativity of our country, we cannot make 100% of an online sale to a customer. We still need physical signatures and some kind of physical contact with our customers. But what we were trying to do in months, we definitely did it in 2 weeks in order to try to be fast adapting to this situation of staying at home so that we can continue our business. But as well, I also agree that this is a time of opportunities. Vehicles will be probably considered as another prevention tool in order to avoid the use of public transportation. We have seen, especially the millennials, that have decided not to have a new car, although they can afford it. So probably they will change their mind at this time in order to remain safe. So hopefully we will see this behavior that we have seen in other countries, in our brands.
I think the next challenge is the restoration of the economy, of the business conditions to work and for our customers to work. We form part of the economic chain, and we have a role, but that role is fitted up with the interaction on top of the chain of the entrepreneur community and the millennials and everybody who is wondering how to generate value, right? So, and this reactivation of the economy, I would say, in lieu of time, that we have in the commercial vehicle arena, an important role as goods, raw materials, finished goods are 100% moved by trucks, including the last mile, and the ability to put them in the distribution centers.
How do you see the opportunity to consolidate greater production of auto parts in North America region to comply with the new rule of origin in the USMCA?
We expect the rules of the content and the attributes of steel and aluminum for our suppliers to be something that can be executed and performed, and we can take advantage in the next coming years of our strategic position in this very important market.
What I would bring it up as important thing from a supplier standpoint that I would like to see as OEM is one thing that I call value. What is the value that we can bring up as supplier to the OEM? Hector was talking precisely about developing tooling, for example, in Mexico, and that is true. So why Mexico hasn't been able to design and to develop tooling, for example? Also, we were talking about, Horacio was talking about how to improve the quality and how to reinforce the quality and the capacity of the suppliers. But in general, I would say how we can bring value to as an overall point of parts. So from my perspective, as much as we can develop internally the entire process designing, testing, of course, building and delivering parts, high quality parts, low price parts, high standards parts. We are going to create a very strong supply chain in Mexico, particularly this time when globalization model looks like it's in challenge now, and there are some questions about how good is globalization, if that is the opportunity, so how we can reinforce our supplier base here in Mexico. So it's what I would answer as that question, Oscar.
As all of us are mentioning, I think the USMCA is changing the rules. And that is bringing a lot of challenges to all of us. But I will say that also brings a lot more opportunities to further develop Mexico in the supply chain of the North American region. I think we have to see that big opportunity. And I think just one example of what we've seen, how well integrated is North America, is with what we've been happening with the COVID in North America. All of us have experienced the importance of the Mexican suppliers in order to produce vehicles in the North American region. I think we know about that, but now we are making that more vivid, and all of us really make aware of the importance of Mexico in that supply chain. I do think there's a lot of opportunities that we have to explore, and in order to capitalize them, we will need to continue working together, because we have the opportunity, but we have to be competitive in order to achieve it.
I believe the first step to have tooling in Mexico is happening as we speak. Now, the second step is where we need really make something special with the government, is a tooling shop is big investment in capital investment, low in intensive labor. So it's more equipment than people. And the equipment is better to be placed in a country that you have tax incentives for new investment. Unfortunately, Mexico today, we don't have a good tax incentives for new capital. So, but what I want to say is the last part of the chain, but it's coming. It's coming, and I am working with some of your procurement leaders to make some kind of a good package for the government to understand that they have to invest in that particular business. How can we work together in this difficult situation that we have? How can we work together? How we should work together with the academia, with the government, with the industry, with our associations, in order to not lose competitiveness in Mexico against some other low-cost countries and manufacturing countries.
No, let me go back in time. Almost 3 decades ago, there was a vision from our authorities to support the automobile industry. There was a vision to make the automobile industry important in Mexico. And now, after some decades, it's what we have. We have a very strong industry. And right now, it's the engine of the country. So around this production and sales, we have many other things. We have all type of general services, financial services, marketing, social responsibility. We transport medicine and food, as they were saying as well. So this is really, really important, but we cannot do it alone. There has to be a master plan. There has to be an agreement, an agenda to work together with the authorities, not only for the next couple of years. There has to be an agenda for the 10 years or even more. So it's very, very important that we work together in this sense as a country. And right now, it's not only a country. Right now, it's a region. That's what I was saying regarding the learnings from this contingency. We are now considered essential, but the essential has to be now the whole region. It's not only Mexico. So if we don't work together, if our governments, I think, in this North American bloc, they have to understand and find the ways to maintain all the business going. Of course, understanding the different realities that we have, but definitely we have to do it this way. There's no other way from now on. We have been doing. One of the main challenges that we faced 5 years ago when we arrived to Mexico, when Kia arrived to Mexico, was to find enough trained people for a manufacturing project. So that's another thing that we have to encourage and work together also with the academy to get even more trained professionals and technicians. I think another thing that is very important, Oscar, in this relationship with authorities is to have certainty. All type of certainty, economical, political. Something that impacts our business is the cost of the energetics. So we have to have the same peace of mind of other countries that this cost of energetics will maintain over the time, so that we can plan as well over time. One of them that is also very important is regulations. Some regulations require planning for 3-5 years in advance. For example, the emissions, that's very important. So if we don't have a clear vision how the emission targets will be for the future years, it was going to be very difficult to define our portfolios in order to make a balance that comply with the regulations over time. So also we need to enhance incentives. We are behind the sale of hybrid vehicles. You mentioned that we will soon have electric vehicles produced in Mexico. So we want those vehicles not only to be for other countries, but also for our country. So definitely we need incentives to try to give the benefit of these new technologies to our consumers in our country.
We haven't talked about the increase of tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers, which is a big opportunity in Mexico. We have a lot of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 suppliers that are in North America. That so when we talk about creating value in Mexico, that's an important part. And then there is the factor of education. Somebody mentioned it, and I would like to elaborate a little bit about that. I think that, we have to work with the academy in order to develop the soft skills that the people require in order to become a competitive advantage. And I'm talking about skills such as critical thinking and using critical thinking in order to improve creativity, good communication, collaboration, and of course, understanding that the world is changing and learning agility becomes a very important part of it.
The next step is how we can work together, government, OEMs, suppliers, academia, and all other members can help to get us more competitive. Because I think at the end of the day, if we want to grow and we want to develop the automotive industry in Mexico, it's around competitiveness. How competitive we are as a region, as a country, compared to others. I think that's very, very important, and we need to think deeply on the things that we will need to do to develop more skilled, trained people to what it's coming, to have competitive cost of energy, being more efficient in all logistics and customs, because I think that's going to be extremely important as well. And there are really other factors to really develop the opportunities that we do see in the new trade agreement. How we develop, as Hector mentioned, how we develop more the supply chain into tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. Because I think that's very important, because in Mexico, we do need to develop more small businesses.
We need to have a fast reaction from government in terms of normativity, in terms of the standards. For example, in our case, we are facing a challenge that in 2021, we, according with the current regulation, we should go to EPA 10 Euro 6 emissions standard for diesel engines. And you know what? The field is not ready for having that regulation in place early next year. So we need to government reacts quickly what the current country conditions are in order that altogether we can really respond for those that are critical things.
How can we provide value? How can we be better in order to be chosen for those OEMs?
I guess that there is a big pressure put on the tier ones by the car industry, but we have one of the biggest challenge, which is the development of the tier two and the three chain. I think in our country, we have taken the advantage of our geographical location together with our low labor compared with our partners in North America. And then we have boomed this very strongly. But now, on this new change of the industry, which is not only coming from the COVID-19, it was already seen before. We were already making a big transformation of the automotive industry from the manpower vehicles or internal combustion into the autonomous electrical driving vehicle. This will just accelerate this change. And I think that in Mexico, the biggest challenge that we have, but at the same time, the biggest opportunity is how we jump into this business transformation by taking the advantage of the current benefits that we have, being the kind of the neighbor of the biggest market in the world still, and that we have an excellent geographical location, and then how we can build this together. Coming to the area of the toolings, I would like just to highlight again that this is a big opportunity that we see. We continue to purchase tools from abroad. We are not competitive in Mexico, and this is giving us a less competitiveness on the assembly of the products in Mexico. I can see a big window of opportunity on the trade conflict between China and United States. I think that this trade conflict is going to accelerate because of the COVID-19 crisis, the output of that. And I think in Mexico, we have to be very smart to understand and read interlines on what is the exact opportunity in this conflict. Because whoever thinks that finally China and US will make no trade at all, I think they are mistaken. And if they believe that the trade between China and Mexico are going to, United States are going to continue exactly same as it was today, I also think it's a mistake. It will be a new world with a new condition and a new trade. And if we, as Mexico, are smart enough to read how we can take the best of both by pulling some Chinese technologies to Mexico and adding real value so that we integrate it into the chain of the North America under the new rules of the USMCA treatment, I think we have a big opportunity there.
I think as a company from Mexico, I do believe we do have a lot of relevant things in Mexico. I think that there's already a supply base that can produce many of the components required to be localized, and we can use economies of scale to increase capacity. I do believe we can do that. In specific to steel, I believe there can be joint ventures and things that can happen so that we adopt some of the technologies that needs to come to Mexico. I also believe that the Mexican supply base has been proven to be quite efficient and competitive for a long time. We have been extending our manufacturing base over time, and this interdependency created between the complementary economies of USA, Mexico, and Canada can be expanded even further. We are agile and quite creative in the implementation of new technologies. So I believe if we can combine, we talked about a little bit in the previous hour about the workers' passion with the right level of technology, I think we for sure can advance and grow.
We would like to understand what are the main yellow and red spots that you're envisioning in our industry in the near future.
The other, I guess, yellow light to me is the electrification. I think this is really something that is happening in the automotive industry. and we being so close to US in the manufacturing, we need to make sure we are ready for this automotive transformation. And the good news is that it won't happen overnight, but we as a supply base need to start preparing.
Now, as red lights and yellow lights, I think that most of it has been covered, but one important issue is the electricity cost in Mexico is too high, and that's been a huge barrier for investments in some areas like castings, and also for steel. That's affecting cost-wise and competitiveness. And it's important that in the country we keep working into lower cost electrifications. Also, another yellow light, I would say, is the labor environment. We had a really bad experience last year in the country in Matamoros. We cannot repeat that. That's something that we have to keep and take a close eye in how that's moved, especially with the USMCA and the new labor regulations. How can we transition in a peaceful way into a better income for our people, but not get into the strikes and everything, because that will kill the industry.